Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to talk now of our next topic about the Las Vegas Raiders. Their biggest addition, in my opinion, will be their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. Where this all stems from, how I'm thinking through this with Luke Getsy after they've added Brock Bowers. They still need a quarterback, but I think it could be looking a little bit brighter because of this new addition. If you look at it and I give you guys a little bit of context about the situation with the Las Vegas Raiders, last year in 2023, they finished 23rd in points and also 27th in yards in 2023 with Aiden O'Connell, Brian Hoyer, and Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, still under their offensive coordinator previously in Mick Lombardi. Then if you look a year before that in 2022, not too much better offensively, 12th in points and in total offense in 2022, still with Derek Carr, Jared Stidham, and Mick Lombardi as the offensive coordinator. Pretty lackluster for the Las Vegas Raiders up until that point. No one was really buying into it. They got a little bit better weapons, but still just cruising at about average. Not too exciting with them, but now they do have better weapons. How can they get the most out of that with this offense now, with still having Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Josh Jacobs before, Michael Myers now. Quarterback is still obviously the biggest piece to it, but I'm looking more so at the offensive coordinator because I think it makes a big difference. I don't think it's a massive surprise when offensive-minded coaches, offensive-minded coordinators, or just head coaches. If you look at Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, some of these guys calling the plays, even if they might not have the most talented of rosters, Kyle Shanahan doesn't really fit the bill, obviously because of the 49ers, but a team like the Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay, you have a late-round pick in Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, who not too many people really knew about him up until 2022, 2021, where he really started making his name. And a lot of people attributed that to the offensive play calling by Sean McVay and how successful he has been, and through the Kyle Shanahan, obviously, through his tree. More of these coaches are starting to get the notoriety that they deserve because of how successful some of these teams have been with the lack of offensive skill players that they have available to them. And now looking at the two offensive coordinators that the Raiders had in the last two stints of their offense, you look at Mick Lombardi, like I mentioned, in 2022 and in 2023. Some of the history behind him: 13 years coaching, 99 and 103 total record as a coach. Only has been an offensive coordinator the last 2 years, technically, based on his job title. 6-11 record in 2022 and a 3-5 record the last year in 2023. He only made it those 8 games only before the Raiders moved on. And now Luke Getsy, comparing him a little bit to Mick Lombardi. A little bit less coaching experience, only 10 years coaching, but a way better win percentage in terms of record at 88 and 59. Has always been on the offensive side of the ball, which is another thing because Mick Lombardi actually started on the defensive side as an assistant defensive coach and then transitioned into the offensive side of the football. Luke Getsy has never been anything other than an offensive coach, has been an offensive coordinator in 5 of the last 6 seasons, and also has a 41 and 36 record in those 5 years as an offensive coordinator. So the stats, the information is more in favor of Luke Getsy, but more context on what that really means because Luke Getsy had the very fortunate situation of being in Green Bay for a lot of those years recently. His most successful time was in 2019 to 2021 with Devontae Adams, who is now on the team as well, and Aaron Rodgers, obviously. A lot of offensive coordinators could look very well with Aaron Rodgers. I will acknowledge that and how that might have made Luke Getsy's job a lot easier than most offensive coordinators who find themselves in different positions. But with that being the case, all right, I could sort of give you guys that point of Green Bay and acknowledging that Aaron Rodgers, that really hides a lot of flaws potentially in Luke Getsy's plans. So most recently, after Green Bay, after the job he did in Green Bay, he got the job with the Chicago Bears. And the most important and the most impressive thing to me about Luke Getsy was his time with the Bears. First, he started 3-14 with the Chicago Bears in a very bad season in 2022. No real weapons outside of Justin Fields still. That's part why Justin Fields struggled so much as he did. And then in 2023, you get 4 more wins, even though the Chicago Bears situation wasn't that much better. You get 4 more wins, and you bring in DJ Moore, and right away he has over 1,000-yard season. You get 4 more wins, and you jump to 7-10. And at that point, you might be looking at 7-10 and thinking, what's the big deal from that? But the instant turnaround that I saw from an offensive standpoint in Justin Fields and in DJ Moore, who up until that point in Carolina was their most important player, obviously, but I don't think he really stepped into that limelight as that number one option other than last year under Luke Getsy. And I think he could bring that sort of idea, that offensive scheme to the Las Vegas Raiders, because 7-10 is not that far off from where the Raiders finished at 8-9. And the main question now is obviously still the quarterback. But I would argue that the quarterback situation, other than Green Bay in Chicago, wasn't that much better than it is right now, with how Justin Fields had developed up until that point and how just the offense tailored around him wasn't really working. It was very much stuttering and very much not looking like a number one quarterback or a number one round quarterback should look in the NFL. Then he has more weapons really with the Las Vegas Raiders. Talking about and comparing this team now to the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears previously with Luke Getsy, how that increases his chances of being more successful here because of the fact that you have Brock Bowers, of the fact that you have Davante Adams. Jacoby Myers is a very underrated number 2 receiver. Michael Mayer, who they selected in the second round last year of the draft, also a very good complement to this offense. The running back is still a question mark that a lot of people have, but not the worst that he's ever had to work with. And I'm sure I'm missing some players like Michael Gallup and Jalen Guyton. Solid players to add depth all over this offense. And if you look to Green Bay and compare Luke Getsy's time now with the Las Vegas Raiders, still obviously to be determined, but in terms of just how many skill position players he has at his disposal, I would argue he has even more than he did at Green Bay, other than quarterback, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers. The skill-based position players on the Raiders are probably at least double the quality that he had in Green Bay, and he still made that look and made the playoffs repeatedly with the Green Bay Packers, and even with the Chicago Bears, 7-10, with really just DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. You have 4 more other options here with the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this is a better situation for him, and Gardner Minshew probably is my winner to win this quarterback competition, but if he does end up winning the job, again, I don't think that's too far out of the realm of doing something with that, just because of how, okay he did with the Indianapolis Colts. He certainly wasn't the reason why they lost games a lot of the times last year. So stepping in now to the Las Vegas Raiders, having all these weapons around him, and having also Luke Getsy to incorporate a scheme that is very familiar to Davante Adams, who is the most important piece to this entire thing for Getsy and for the Las Vegas Raiders. The best thing about him and Davante Adams talking to the media this past week at mandatory minicamp was that he said that everybody else is still learning it, but the good thing about him and having worked already with Luke Getsy is obviously the fact that he knows about 90% of the offense already, and that's a big thing for him to try and be that teaching outlet to a lot of his teammates. And it's certainly going to be still a work in progress, obviously, because the quarterback is the most important position. But I think now the fact that you brought in Luke Getsy and the fact that Mick Lombardi had the results that he did with almost the same amount of weapons that Luke Getsy does now, I think shows the difference in quality that you're going to see from both coordinators now with Luke Getsy into this new era, trying to get at least to 8-9. Again, keeping in mind that the Raiders is very much a improving situation. You don't maybe think that they're at contention level yet. That's okay for me, at least looking at this organization and looking at the situation as it is, getting it to at least better than 8-9, I think is still a success for this team with no quarterback in that division, in that conference. Not to mention with how tough it is in the AFC. If you get anything better than 8-9 and improve from last year, I think that'll be a huge step forward for Antonio Pierce and this offense. And I think Luke Getsy is going to be a massive orchestrator of all of that. On the offensive side, the defense is looking great from the reports coming out of mandatory minicamp. Because they've been together a lot longer and you add a guy like Christian Wilkins, you're only going to get that much better. I'm excited to see the Raiders a little bit just because, like I mentioned, the skill-based players are there. Luke Getsy's offense and Antonio Pierce, big fan of him and what he did. So I think they'll have a solid year with the pieces that they have. But let me know what you guys think about it. Do you guys believe in the Raiders, or am I hyping them up a little bit too much here on this show? But we're going to go to a quick break and put a pin in that conversation. When we return, two more topics to talk about, some more running back rankings, this time in the NFC East. Then we're going to go over to the AFC East and talk about Nathaniel Hackett not calling plays during mandatory minicamp, benched in a way by the New York Jets for the passing coordinator to take over the play calling duties. I'll let you know why that is and why that certainly has a lot of people, especially me, thinking that this situation with Nathaniel Hackett is certainly anything but finished during this offseason. More on those topics when we return. We'll be right back.